Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well and welcome back to another studio vlog. It feels like I haven't sat down and done one of these in a long time. I'm not entirely sure how long it's been, but I do know my last couple of videos were more like sit down drawing ones and not really going into the behind the scenes stuff. But it feels good to be back and finally get my act together and work on the palette restock that I feel like I probably should have done almost a month ago at this point. If you've been around for a while or remember, I typically have like a massive store and palette restock around my birthday and also have a really big sale then too, because I started Studio of MM on my birthday however many years ago it was at this point, and so I have like this whole anniversary celebration thing go on, but this year just did not happen. And I was fully intending on continuing that tradition, but there was some plastic drama, which we will get into. It has mostly resolved itself thankfully, but it was actually kind of nice for once to have a chilled out birthday and not be running around like a lunatic on my birthday having to like fulfill a million orders and do all of the other crazy stuff that would generally happen, which I mean I do know it's my own fault. So I did, well, I was gonna say a chill birthday, but I spent the whole day working on droids instead. But that's what I wanted to do and it was fun, so no complaints there. But that does mean that now finally it is the crazy palette restock time and I have a ton of cool plans for this one. But before we get into too much, there is of course a sale right now on in my store to make up for my lack of anniversary sale. We're gonna have a late anniversary slash summer sale this week. All of the specifics will be down below. I believe it's going to be 15% off of absolutely anything in my store using a coupon code that I'm going to put here because I haven't come up with one yet. Real professional. But yeah, that is the plan for this week. I know a lot of you have been asking about some of the different types of palettes that I haven't restocked in quite a long time at this point, and so there should be a whole bunch of new options for you available if you've been waiting and looking for one of those. I know I'm going to be doing a ton of traditional palette towers, which they have been pretty low in stock for quite a while now, so there's going to be hopefully a bunch of really cool designs there. I'm going to do galaxies, I believe, for almost every type of palette, which I have never done for some of the different palettes, so it's going to be galaxy lids because I know a lot of you like those as well. But now that I've rambled on forever as usual in this intro, let's get into some palette prep. So here are all of the palette lids that we've got going on. I think I have 20, at least right now, of the normal palette towers and 6 of the Kuretake towers. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and start actually taping all of these up. I tape all of the insides up so that I don't get any resin or paint on them, which is obviously gonna take a while, and I've got my little tape dispenser thing here with all of the different tapes that I use for palettes. I don't actually know if I've shown this in a video. Clearly I use quite a lot of tapes for the different palettes. Like this absolute thinnest one is what I use for these palettes because it is what fits perfectly in the inside of the rim, like on the inner like lip of the palette lid. Yeah, that's my maybe exciting tape dispenser setup. This is going to take me quite a while, so I'm probably going to throw some YouTube videos on or something and just get to work going through these. It sort of dawned on me while I was sitting here working on all of these palette lids that I haven't exactly done a great job explaining what exactly these lids are for, other than, you know, by the name you would assume they are for paint palettes. And I do also know there's been an increasing amount of comments asking me about certain things because I've just done an incredible job actually explaining the various palette products that I make at this point, and I figured this was just the perfect opportunity to quickly run through the different things. The last thing I want is for the palettes to be confusing, and at this point there are quite a few different types of palette products, which was never my intention. It all started because of one of these, and basically everything since then has sort of happened the exact same way. So this is the original travel palette, and I made myself, this specific one is the original one because this is the only one I actually own. That's not actually true, but my other one I've never put paint in. So this is the only one that's actually like finished and fully functional to be a good example for what exactly this is. So it is in this metal tin with a pour painted lid. You can buy them plain now too. It has a mixing dish that sits on top here. Inside there's another insert that has 15 wells of paint, and in my palette's case it is gouache, but I know probably most of you use it for watercolor, and I would equally do that. It's just for whatever reason I decided to make my original palette a gouache palette. I also have a little swatch chart thing, which reminds me, hopefully I will at the very least when I'm editing this back remember to do this. I'm gonna design perfectly fitting swatch cards for the two different travel palettes so that you can like easily print them off to like cut out and put in your palette if you want, like in this case to have it fit perfectly within the tin. You can generally get watercolor paper to feed through an inkjet printer, but other than that it would just be like a template so that you can have that to use for a swatch chart if you want to put one in your travel palette. But yes, this was the palette type that started it all. I have no clue how many I've made since then, which is insane. There have been hundreds. But one thing with this palette that I kept on seeing in the comment section and stuff is that people wished it could hold more paint or, you know, just be larger in some capacity. And that is when I came out and designed what is probably my favorite product. I don't know about that. I like some of the other storage, like the brush organizer I'm obsessed with, and the pencil organizers that look like a colored pencil. Those are my top three probably, including this one. And this is the compact palette, which as you can see, very compact as the name would suggest. It is fully 3D printed this time, which is super fun for me because I do love to 3D print. All of these are like 3D printed products. You probably have gathered that. Maybe. Again, just have you ever met a more excellent salesperson? But anyway, as you can see, quite a compact design, and this thing holds 42 half pan equivalents of watercolor and or gouache paint, and 2 mixing dishes. If you open it up here, this is my personal one. You've got mixing dish 1, mixing dish 2, and then one of the layers of this is a miniature version of my main fancy watercolor palette that I use all of the time. I went through and grabbed the colors that I used the most, and so I have one layer is warm colors, one layer is cool colors, and the third layer is neutral colors. But I know you guys love these just as much as I do, and they've been pretty hard to keep in stock, so I'm going to make sure that I can make as many as possible for this sale so that there's a lot of different color options available for people to choose from if you've been waiting for them to come back in stock and or waiting on a particular color scheme. I might actually do a few more galaxy ones as well because those went over pretty big. But yeah, those are the two travel palettes, the normal travel palette and the compact palette. And as you can see, we have a brand and we're sticking to it for my lids. Now I feel like the most confusing, although I've tried to make it as non-confusing as possible, but it's just a more complex system than the travel palettes. You know, this gives you everything that you need, and if you want to buy like other extra inserts and whatever, you can, but generally, you know, you're buying the travel palette, it's got everything you need in it, you're good to go. But the palette towers, which look like this one is my normal one. Because this is a modular system, I feel like this is where it's more complicated, you know, because you're building it to your desired effect. I mean, that's good in a way because you can make it exactly how you want it for whatever storage needs you have for your paint, but it also means it can get more confusing. But the story behind the palette tower is I wanted something to be able to very sleekly hold a lot of watercolor and or gouache paint colors or pans. A lot of these are like prototype layers and stuff, so let's find one that actually shows off what this does. But it is a tower of these individual layers, and the dimensions of the individual layers, I measured a whole bunch of different watercolor pans, like every type of pan that I had in my collection I measured out, and this was the best size to be able to most efficiently hold overall the various pan sizes that I had in my collection. Both half and full pan. It's been a whole thing. It went through many iterations to get to this point, but this is where we are now. I completely forgot to mention each individual layer can hold 20 full pans or 36 half pans, or, you know, a combination of the two. Now this is more studio storage. I know people have put like a thicker elastic band around like the overall tower layer. Let me get this back. This is a pretty tall layer, but I know people have like taken 2 layers or 3 layers, or just, you know, you're probably not going to need to travel with how much paint this can store. But if you did want the option to take your paint around, I know people have taken like a large elastic band, something like a lot of wet palettes have, and like wrapped it around the whole thing. I haven't thought about making that available yet. If that's something you would be interested in, I could look at the logistics of possibly, you know, having that available if traveling with these is something a lot of you are interested in. But the reason that I designed this originally for myself was to have as studio storage. It's not gonna like knock itself over because it does fit inside of each other, and me just moving this around on my desk and it lives permanently on my desk is what it's intended use for, although I do have some in a drawer unit as well, and it's very easy to grab out of there. So this right now just holds my more unusual watercolor paints. I add adhesive putty into each tower so that you can easily attach your individual pans to the layer so that you don't have like a catastrophe on your hand, but the pans can still be very easily removed around if you need to like reorganize your paint colors or whatever. It's just a bit of a safety net. I have also over time made these inserts. These I think are custom ones, so I probably shouldn't be showing you these ones. The idea stands though. I made inserts that fit into the tower layers for half and full pans for anyone that doesn't have individual pans of their colors, or they want to like make a custom watercolor or gouache palette for themselves. And also over time I developed some accessories. Right now it is the brush holder layer. So do I have a paintbrush? You would never know this was an art studio and I just flubbered on the paintbrush idea. So what this is a tower that stacks perfectly in line with everything else, and it has these cutouts that you can easily lay brushes across. It keeps them perfectly parallel, so you don't have to worry about any water getting back up into the ferrule. It would be great if I didn't show you just the end of the brush there. Here's a more substantial brush. So there's 8 slots that you can lay your brushes on so that they're not rolling all over your desk, and also so that the brushes can dry properly. The thing that's basically the palette tower situation, but just for different paint, are the K palette towers. So these you can see are quite a different shape. They are way more square, and that is because these are palette towers specifically designed for the Kuretake watercolor pan. If you own one of these sets, you will know it is in a giant flat cardboard box that I feel like drives most of us insane. So this is the entire 36 set, which was in a box probably like this big before that I could like barely fit in a drawer, compact into this. And despite having made this for years, I still have done an incredible job remembering to grab my lid and paint it for myself. This is the same idea as the normal palette towers. It's just specifically designed for these pans, and or if you like using these pans more, I have actually individual pans that are the exact same dimensions as these, as well as inserts for this whole tower situation, because I know I really enjoy using the larger pans, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well. They're like extra large full pans, and so if that's something you're into, those are available as well. Hopefully that explains and like demystifies the palette situation and also explains what I'm working on in this video. But of course, if there's any questions about anything, please feel free to leave them in the comment section or email me, message me anywhere. I'm always happy to help. But now let's get into the plastic drama, as we call it. Hello, it's Editing Michaela. I rambled on way too long about the plastic drama, and this video is already getting long enough, so I decided to combine the explanation of the drama with the pour painting footage so that the pour painting has like commentary basically, but there's going to be a bit of a weird jump here that I need to keep in continuity wise for the sake of the footage that I filmed. So I just figured I better come on here, explain what is going on. I promise I will get to the plastic drama explanation. It's just going to be like not the next clip, but the clip after that, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of the studio vlog, and sorry for the interruption. Well, I just spent the last like 2 hours physically shaking all of these bottles, and I mixed up a few special colors because I do have a ton of lids. I'm not sure if I've ever tried to do this many palettes, and I also don't know if I'm gonna be able to get them all done in one shot, even with my like multi-tiered system thing going on there. I got some fun special colors here. This I know doesn't look exciting. It is like this really fun glittery rainbow mixture because I think I'm gonna do some like Pride Month palettes because I've done a few of those in the past and I know a lot of you really like them, and so even regardless of that, you know, just really super colorful rainbow glitter might look really cool in some of them. The bottle situation, I don't know how much I've talked about it because it has actually been a reasonable amount of time since I've poured anything, but my whole pre-mix bottle situation, super amazing. I wish I'd done it a lot sooner. It saves me a lot of time other than, you know, physically having to shake up the bottles. It still takes a lot less time than me mixing them all individually into cups, and then I don't have to worry as much about like using up all the paint because I can just, you know, twist the lid on and we're all good to go. Yeah, time to tackle these palettes. But now let's get into the plastic drama, as we call it. I've been making these various palette products for a long time, and as I mentioned, they are all 3D printed, and over the years I have tried out a few different plastics that I make the products in, whether that's just finding a better white color temperature, because there's a lot of different colors of white filament that you can get, and I'm very particular about what I make, and so that is important to me. But even within the type of plastic that I use, which is PLA, there's a lot of different makeups and textures and consistencies that PLA comes in. And so over the years I have tried it a bunch. I made certain products out of certain filament types because I liked one type of white filament for one product. And finally, I found this filament that I have been using for the compact palettes. That's like my favorite filament that I have ever found for making products. So if you own a compact palette, you can see this in person, but that is the best filament that I've like ever used for products. The white is super dense and pigmented because a lot of the white filaments almost look translucent, or they're just not as opaque as a lot of white filaments, and that's a big thing that I look at. Basically what I'm getting at, I've been trying to switch all of my products over to that filament because I like it so much. It's like hard compared to other filaments. It doesn't stain like at all. Like watercolor, of course, can be quite a staining paint medium, and I have like gotten everything clean, whereas before some of the filaments that I would use, like you can see I think on this tower, I accidentally have like touched this like tower. Of course you can't see, it's like the light is just absolutely killing this thing. But some of the filaments that I've used over time, some paint colors just like will not come off of them easily, and like it's not necessarily a problem because what those products were, it wasn't an issue. Like I've always tested it out and gone for a filament that is like the least staining and like hard as I possibly can for like the mixing trays and all of that stuff, because that particular filament is slightly newer to me. It's from a local company. It's a really good like price range because filament has almost doubled, I think, since I started making these products, and so I'm always trying to keep the cost of the product as even as I possibly can so I don't have to like raise it over time. And just overall it's been like the perfect possible filament, and it's like nothing that I have ever found with anything else. And the plastic drama comes in because I do buy this filament in bulk. I buy a lot of this filament because I use it now for everything, or I would like to be using it for everything. And so, you know, I do have a reasonable stockpile. It has been significantly larger than it's sitting at right now. I still got like, I think 3 or 4 rolls. Normally I have like a steady 10. So I was like, okay, I'm preparing for the store restock. Let's order some. And it was out of stock and they don't know when they're getting it back in, which is just the drama that I apparently needed for a massive store launch. So the good news is they are still stocking it. It's just, you know, the whole supply chain situation. It's probably a miracle that it took this long to mess me up in like the plastic restocking department, but it has. And so my somewhat measly stockpile is all I have to print off of right now, and I need that filament to print the compact palettes in. Like, I will not print them in anything else, and so it is essentially reserved right now for those palettes. Even though I wanted to flip all of the tower layers over to that filament, all of the inserts, like literally any product that is a white filament is going to be that filament, and that was always the plan. The half okay thing is that I found a filament that is really close. Like, I would not be willing to settle for this filament if it was not almost identical. So I have flipped over the actual like inserts and all of the tower products that I make now that are not the mixing dishes to this other filament until I can replace it with the filament that I actually want to. I bet if I showed you on camera now, even if I like got rid of the crazy lighting setup and like took a picture, you would not be able to tell the difference between the two. It's mostly the hardness, so I don't want to use this stuff for the mixing trays, but it's going to work fine for the inserts, the tower layers, the lids, all of that. So I've been working at rebuilding up my stockpile of products to have, you know, ready to be shipped out in that. That's the plastic drama and the situation that I'm sitting at right now. So not ideal, but we're making it work, and I suppose it could be worse. I don't think I've ever had anyone complain about the plastic changing because I have tried to keep it as close to each other even when I have changed it over time. But I did just want to mention that I am planning on switching all of the plastic to the one type, so everything will match. It'll look super nice. But I did just want to mention that there is going to be this temporary other filament that you probably will never be able to tell is a different filament for the tower layers, and then once I can actually get the filament that I want to be making everything out of now, then yeah, we're gonna be good. I'm going to like triple stockpile what I would normally have on stockpile to make sure this doesn't happen again. I suppose it's good that it happened now before I started switching over all of the tower layers to the new stuff and then couldn't continue printing in that. But yes, that is the whole palette product situation. Hopefully that wasn't boring. I feel like it's a bit of a mixed bag as to whether people actually are interested in the behind the scenes workings of running a small business and the stuff that I do. Although I guess that's sort of the point of a studio vlog, is the behind the scenes of it all. But yeah, that's the update, and so let's actually get back into working on these palette lids. Now that you actually all understand what I'm working on. I did also paint some Galaxy palettes, but there's just so much footage from those palettes alone that I'm going to make an entire separate video that should hopefully be up in the next couple of days. It is a full house in this cabinet. It actually probably should be like maxed out. Right now it doesn't look too bad, like it does look full. But one on the bottom is empty and the other is really just a stack of unused cookie sheets right now. And that is because I didn't actually get to painting the travel palettes until today. So I actually like combined all of the ones that I did last night. So they weren't quite dry when I moved them, but they were like dry enough that I could handle them, and I like really squished them together on these cookie sheets to give me more slot space, because I'm pretty sure those actually took up like 6 trays worth. The palettes that I did last night, which were all of the tower lids and then the compact lids, those are all like really smashed together on those trays. But it has been like 24 hours since I've painted those, so I'm probably gonna try and resin them now. I think I can do it. I can definitely do a few rounds, but I do have one still drying, so I can't like collapse those further, but I will be able to gain the slots back on the trays that have the dried palettes on them, but then those trays have wet paint, so they have to go back in there. It's a puzzle gonna get all of these cookie trays to fit. Also, I have all of this mess that I have to deal with, although it's significantly more easy to handle than it was, because they're just gonna go away as they are in their own container, and that generally goes in there. Gonna be a lot of moving around of cookie sheets. you know, just a couple of palettes that I now need to clean up. I completely ran out of room and cookie sheets in there, so I stacked all of the ones that I resined in the first round, even though I didn't clean them up, so there's like all the resin drips and tape and stuff on them still, and then redid 4 more cookie sheets, I think, of resin, so I had 8 cookie sheets of resined products, which, I mean, you can just see all of the lids here, all the travel palettes up there. And then more lids and Galaxy palettes over here. So yeah, it's going to be a long night of palette cleanup for me. I'm not entirely done cleaning up all of the palette lids, but as I have been gradually going through these, I realized there's so many that dried super cool, like with different glitters and duochromes, and I know that the pictures that I'm going to end up taking are just absolutely not going to do these palette lids justice, and so I wanted to show you a couple of them just to have like documentation of how these turned out somewhere. This travel palette lid is super wild. It looks so cool. Hopefully the camera is like picking this up, but this one obviously has a lot of the color flash like duochrome paints that I like adding into a lot of palettes just because they do look so cool in the poured mixture. Of course there's a lot of it just, you know, general metallic ones as well that look super cool. I will say this one, it is not often that I'm tempted to keep particular palette lids. Like, I obviously for every wave have my favorites, and you know, the ones I think are going to go first, or it's like, oh, lucky person, they got to that lid first in particular. But this one is nearly doing me in. I don't know, it's just, it is like super colorful and it just dried really cool. It has a really cool metallic sheen to it as well. I'm not gonna keep it, but this one was severely tempting me. I know I should probably stop going through all of these lids. We do not have time to go through all of them because there's quite an extensive number of lids. I know some of these just dried super cool, and I also really hope that my pictures can do some of these lids justice. I finally got all of the palettes cleaned up and put back together, which means I can now go ahead and take the millions of pictures that I need for all of their store listings. But I figured this was a perfect chance to actually end this studio vlog. Of course, all of the palettes that I've been making in this video are available right now in my store. So if you see one that you like, don't forget to use the coupon code to get a discount off of that, as well as anything else in my store if you're interested. And yeah, that's gonna be everything for this week. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.